Before I move into this next section, I must prepare myself for the stink of overwhelming bullshit that it contains. Hold on just 1 second. Okay, that's better. Thank you, Finite Atticus, for allowing me the use of your gas mask. I don't think my sensitive asthmatic lungs could handle breathing in the fumes from the Conservapedia section on atheism, pederasty, and NAMBLA. Let's get through this as quickly as we can. Atheism, pederasty, and NAMBLA. Some of the well-known atheist advocates of the North American Man-Boy Love Association, or NAMBLA, are the atheist and homosexual David Thorstad was a founding member of the North American Man-Boy Love Association, or NAMBLA. Harry Hay, 1912 through 2002, was a liberal advocate of statutory rape and the widely acknowledged founder and progenitor of the activist homosexual agenda in the United States. Hay joined the Communist Party of the United States, or CPUSA, in 1934. Harry Hay was an atheist. He was a vociferous advocate of man-boy love. In 1986, Hay marched in a gay parade wearing a shirt emblazoned with the words, "NAMBLA walks with me." The writer, Samuel R. Delany, is an atheist and homosexual. Delany said he was a supporter of NAMBLA. See also Richard Dawkins on child molestation and so-called gentle pedophiles, and John Maynard Keynes on pederasty. While the information presented on David Thorstad and Harry Hay are accurate as far as I can verify, the context and implication behind how it is presented is fallacious, intellectually dishonest, and only seeks to demonize not only atheists, but homosexuals as well. As far as the third individual, Samuel R. Delany, is concerned, I could not even verify his existence until I realized that Conservapedia misspelled his last name. At that point, I was able to verify all the claims. In all, as I said, this only seeks to falsely conflate atheism and homosexuality with pederasty. Atheism has nothing to do with sexuality and is amoral by definition. What an individual who happens to be atheist does not reflect atheism. If this was so, we could also accuse the Catholic Church, the Boy Scouts of America, child daycare, and pretty much every single organization, culture, and subculture that has ever existed of having the nature and tendency toward pederasty as well. Conflating homosexuality with it is also fallacious, and I would even go as far as to call it disgustingly dishonest and downright condemnable. Pedophilia itself is a psychological disorder characterized by a sexual preference for prepubescent children. Molestation and sexual abuse of a child are terms used to describe actual sexual contact between an adult and someone who has not reached the legal age of consent. This distinction is important to make because we must be very clear here as to how terribly disgusting Conservapedia is being in its accusations. Child molesters are not always pedophiles, and not all pedophiles actually act upon their sexual desires. Another problem with terminology is how adult male abuse of a male child is described as homosexual molestation, wherein the use of the term homosexual is not being used to actually describe the adult sexual orientation, only the victim's gender in relation to the adult perpetrator. The distinction between a victim's gender and a perpetrator's sexual orientation is important because many child molesters don't really have an adult sexual orientation. This means that whether the pedophile or molester abuses a female or male is only consequential to what child they are attracted to, and quite often the perpetrator is not attracted to adults of either sex. I have linked a paper written by Dr. Gregory M. Herrick, Ph.D., wherein all of what I said is verifiable through his article and cited academic sources. Atheism and bestiality. Bestiality is the act of engaging in sexual relations with an animal. The atheist philosopher Peter Singer defends the practice bestiality as well as abortion, infanticide, and euthanasia. Despite holding these views, the liberal and pro-evolution academic establishment awarded his views with a bioethics chair at Princeton University. The prominent atheist P.Z. Myers declared, "I don't object to bestiality in a very limited set of specific conditions. The Bible says that bestiality is a perversion and, under the Old Testament Jewish law, punishable by death. The atheistic worldview does not lend itself to the establishment of morality within society and individuals." The Christian apologist and author Michael Caputo writes, "Although bestiality is not openly supported by well-known militant atheist sites, support for it is inherent in their insistence that decisions of a sexual nature should be left up to the individual adults to determine. God disagrees." For additional information, see Atheism and Bestiality, Evolutionary Belief in Bestiality. In areas of the Western world where there is significant amount of atheism and evolutionary belief, there have been notable problems related to bestiality. See geographic areas where bestiality is posing a notable problem. This again is an attempt to demonize atheism by falsely conflating it with a sexuality that Conservapedia authors and more importantly its readers see as immoral. I agree that bestiality is immoral because it is, as far as I'm concerned, basically raping an animal. The animal cannot give consent, and I would think if it could voice its opinion on the matter, the animal would most likely protest. But that is an assumption of mine, and one that I will never personally investigate or experiment with. However, before we move on to the next section, I must point out in detail the fallacies being used in both of these sections. First and foremost, both sections are a correlation proves causation fallacy. It is implying because the people it lists are both atheists and pedophiles or supporters of pedophiles, then atheism causes and or proves of pedophilia. The same is being implied in regards to bestiality. Fallacy of composition can also be ascribed to the same act of assuming what is true of a part, the individual atheist, must also be true of the whole, all atheists. Fallacy of a single cause is also being used, implying that atheism is what causes the behavior. If by whiskey fallacy is being used because, as I pointed out, if what they say is true of atheism, it could also be applied to the Catholic Church, and they are using very emotionally sensitive terms and topics. They are also incomplete comparisons, omitting information that would falsify the implications they are making. Mind projection fallacy, the authors see atheism as evil and immoral, so it must be evil and immoral. Moral high ground fallacy, the authors are claiming a moral high ground by referencing the Bible. Naturalistic fallacy, inferring evaluative conclusions based on purely factual premises. So-and-so is an atheist, gay, and a pedophile, so atheists are gay pedophiles. Regression fallacy, ascribing a cause where none exists, and of course a number of red herring fallacies, including ad hominem, a personal attack against atheists by saying we are immoral pedophiles. Now, let's move on. That gas mask is not comfortable. Atheism and hypocrisy. In order to attempt to justify their atheism, atheists often engage in hypocritical argumentation. In addition, atheists often engage in hypocritical behavior. Please see atheist hypocrisy. Some atheists are hypocrites. Sure, I'll allow that, but generalizing an entire group based on the actions of a few I will not allow, especially considering the topic and how hypocritical it is of Conservapedia to say atheists are hypocritical. Atheism and miracles. In relation to atheism and miracles, modern scholars are divided on the issue of whether or not David Hume was an atheist. With that caveat in mind, Hume is well known for arguing that it is always more probable that the testimony of a miracle is false than that the miracle occurred. Christian apologists William Lane Craig, Norman Geisler, C.S. Lewis, J.P. Holding, and others have shown the inadequacy and unreasonableness of Hume's position regarding miracles. Miracles don't happen. Until one can prove something to be a miraculous event that actually occurred, it is actually quite unreasonable to assume that they do occur. Simply put, believing in miracles without ever having experienced a true miracle is unreasonable. Conflating an unlikely event, such as the sudden recovery of an accident victim in critical life-threatening condition, to a miracle is not only unreasonable, but belittles the work of the professionals who actually saved that victim's life. Atheism and questions of origins. Creationist scientists state that the first law of thermodynamics and the second law of thermodynamics argue against an eternal universe or a universe created by natural processes and argue for a universe created by God. A majority of the most prominent and vocal defenders of the evolutionary position, which employs methodological naturalism since World War II, have had the worldview of atheism. Creation scientists assert that the theory of evolution is an inadequate explanation for the variety of life forms on Earth. In addition, the current naturalistic explanations for the origins of life are inadequate. The theory of evolution has had a number of negative social effects. The only correction to make here will encompass all of that, and that is that creation scientists is an oxymoron. And the people who make up this bunch do not state those laws, they misrepresent them to reach preconceived conclusions. They use circular reasoning because they have to in order to reach the conclusion they already have, that God did it. Oh, and the theory of evolution has had no negative social effects because saying so is falsely equating evolution with social Darwinism. And as I've said, social Darwinism has nothing to do with atheism, Darwin, or evolution. Finally, I'd like to thank Finite Atticus for allowing me the use of his gas mask. He has an awesome channel that I highly recommend. He is a self-described, doubly damned gay atheist, and his videos reflect this perspective on religion and social issues. I am quite sure that every one of my subscribers know who he is, but if not, check out his channel. You won't regret it. There is a link in the description. Thanks for watching.